Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the Eco TV viewers around the world, and especially here at home in the Gambia. This is Lamin Mane again. Today, I'm all alone. My friends Lamin Komma and Larry Sisi are unavailable. So I'll be holding the fort until next week when they join me, inshallah. Thank you for welcoming us into your homes and for being part of this Eco TV listeners and an audience, and especially the telespectators of Eco TV International. Thank you very much for inviting us into your homes. Today we're going to have a quick recap of what happened in 2026. And unfortunately, that recap is essentially on the negative side of the balance. What we saw in 2026 in the Gambia is essentially festering of corruption. Corruption has become an endemic disease in this country, and with no clear intention from government to put an end to it. Because the president himself went out of his way to say that audit reports, which essentially point out the corruption, which tell government what went wrong and how to remedy it to prevent a recurrence of that same phenomenon the following years, the president went out of his way to say audit reports are just opinions. And that, of course, was empowering every corrupt individual in this country to be able to continue doing what they do. And along the same lines, the anti-corruption bill was passed 2 years ago, 2023. It was not until this year that the Anti-Corruption Commission was set up and the members appointed. But to date, it's still not functional. That says a lot about this government's intention to fight corruption and to put an end to the pilferage of our resources. And that is growing all over the country. In every sector of the Gambian economy, you see it. And when you empower corruption, impunity comes in through the main door. Accountability goes out through the window. And people get so emboldened, they think they can do anything and get away with it. And that's exactly what's happening in this country. Everybody is free to do what you want in terms of corruption, and nobody's called to account, nobody's made accountable, and of course our country is suffering from that. The auditors have been doing a very good job pointing out the corruption, pointing out what is going wrong, and what should be changed in order to bring sanity into our system. And they're constantly ignored. And the worst part of it is even the legislative provisions which are supposed to help put an end to corruption are in fact not helping in any single way. Because when an auditor's report is submitted to Parliament, what Parliament can do is order an investigation into the audit findings. When those audit findings have been investigated by the police, they come back to Parliament. Parliament cannot launch any proceedings. It has to go to the executive, the Attorney General's chambers, to have those people prosecuted. So basically, you are asking the thief to prosecute himself, because the executive is where all of the stealing has been taking place. They are the people who have been condoning it or have been involved in it themselves. And now you ask them, because to all intents and purposes, the Attorney General is the Minister of Justice, so he is part of the executive. If he has to prosecute the people who have been involved in corruption, there is a conflict of interest there. Because the president is the one who appoints Auditor General, so the Attorney General, and the Attorney General works at the pleasure of the president. So how would he prosecute anybody without the president's authorization? I don't see it happening in the country, in the Gambia, where you have a strong Attorney General, somebody who puts his integrity before everything else. Maybe that could happen. But unfortunately, what we have in the Gambia is a system where the ministers are entirely serve at the pleasure of the president. So they can be removed anytime the president sees fit. So very few ministers will take the liberty of doing something which they think might be against what the president wants. So I do not see the Attorney General doing anything that the president doesn't want. And if the president tells us that audit reports are opinions, I don't see the Attorney General going against that position and starting to prosecute anybody. So in a nutshell, corruption enjoys impunity in this Gambia. That is one of the problems we're having today. And to crown it all, we saw the Auditor General Cisse, who went out of his way to point out corruption, and who told us that the president had told him to delay the publication of those results because he doesn't want that to affect his re-election chances in 2026. Well, Mr. President, we have news for you. 2026, you're going to lose. Whether they publish those reports or not, the Gambian people have been suffering for far too long, and they know what is happening, and they're going to lose. Your best bet would have been not to run, because you made a promise for 3 years, and then you went to 5 years and 10 years, and you said the Constitution will be locked in such a way that nobody can do more than 2 terms. Well, that is history now. If you were to listen to the people who think they like you, and the people who think they want to see you live a happy life after being president, you would not run in 2026. But I'm sure you will run, and for me that doesn't matter. The good thing would have been not to run, but you run will still beat you. So go ahead and run if you want to. It would have been much more to your advantage if you didn't run. But yes, the Constitution allows you to run again if you want to. Go ahead, run. Run for a 3rd term of office. You'll be beaten fairly and squarely, and you'll come down humiliated. As opposed to going the other way, not running, and have a chance of living with more dignity and be an elder statesman with a lot of respect. But the choice is yours. I wouldn't dwell on that. Come back to the corruption that's festering in the country. This corruption is what has been destroying our economic fabric. This country has been constantly on the brink. You and your government decided to mortgage a bridge that was built for the Gambia free of charge at a very high cost. $97 million to build the bridge, 14 million euro to construct the access roads. And you decide to mortgage that bridge. That bridge can bring us, over the 25 years you mortgage it, it can fetch us minimum $300 million. Minimum. But the realistic estimate would be anywhere between $400 and $500 million is what we could get there. But just going by your own figures, the figures of your ministers, about what the bridge is bringing in, we're looking at $300 million over 25 years. And your government mortgaged it for $100 million. And the argument was that those $100 million were going to be used to build additional infrastructure. It did not happen, because the money was not paid up front. There was an initial payment of $15 million, which was used to pay salaries. So it didn't go into infrastructure. So you sell infrastructure and capital expenditure, you take the money and use it for administrative expenditure, paying salaries. Does it make sense? It's like selling your house and going on live with the money. You don't sell a house, go on live. You sell your house to buy additional property. Or if you mortgage, you take the money and build another house or another productive asset for yourself. You don't sell your house or mortgage it and go on leave with that money. You come back, still have to pay the money, and you have no income accruing from the leave. But that's what you did to us. You mortgaged that bridge for $100 million for 25 years. And to add insult to injury, the contract you signed with Africa 50, to whom you mortgaged it, says that we cannot build any competing infrastructure within a radius of 50 kilometers. So you not only mortgage our bridge, but you mortgage our sovereignty as well, because we cannot take any sovereign decision on our development outcomes in those areas. That is how bad that bridge deal was for the Gambia. But let's move on. Your government spent $41 million to refurbish Gambia International Airport. After spending all that money, we don't even have stable electricity, we don't have clean toilets, no proper air conditioning, no proper lighting for the runway. Sometimes flights have to go and land in neighboring Dakar, not to talk of the fire engines. You spent $41 million and nothing to show for it. And on top of that, and that was a loan which we have to pay back. And on top of that, now you're telling us, oh, well, the airport is not good enough, and we're going to concession it out and build a new one. So all the money you spent in the airport is at a sunk cost. It's lost to us. We have to pay that money, but you're still going to concession it out to somebody else. As if that's not bad enough. The Gambia International Airways, which is an income-generating facility within the airport's infrastructure, or the airport ecosystem, your government decides to kill that Gambia International Airways to the benefit of Nero, a private-owned enterprise. So you kill our public enterprise, Gambia International Airways, which employs 450 Gambians on a permanent basis. And you decide to kill that by transferring its work and its assets to a privately owned outfit owned by present and former government officials, which employs around 50 people only, on contract, not even permanent basis. So the money that is going to be going to the Gambia government through Gambia International Airways is now being lost to private pockets. So you decide to privatize all of our income-generating assets, or sell them off, or mortgage them, or concession them. These are the resources which are supposed to help us develop our country, pay for our investments, pay for our budget requirements. But no, your transactional government can only think about what your people will get. Nero should never have been allowed to compete Gambia International Airways, let alone take its market. There were talks to him to develop a real airline for the Gambia, with Ethiopian Airlines to be the technical partner. And Gambia International Airways was supposed to go to Ethiopia to discuss those issues. What did you do? Your government sidelined Gambia International Airways, took Nero to Ethiopia to negotiate that contract, and Gambia International Airways and the Gambians have lost out. Because Nero is incapable of building that airport airline for the moment. Gambia International Airways, which could have, has been sidelined. So the Gambia is losing there too. There is a market there for the Gambia International Airways and an airline. We're losing it. Again, because of corruption in this government. That is in the airline industry. We go to the ports. Our hard-earned tax dollars were used to build the Banjul International Port, because it is an international port. When we had people like Captain Sala there, the port was bringing in a lot of income to this country. Gambians were being trained in all sectors of port activity. I had classmates in Gambia High School 6th form who were recruited whilst we were in lower 6th and who were sent to train as captains. Gumbo Toure, Seni Jadama, and two others, I can't even remember the name. They were recruited and sent out to go and train as captains, naval captains. We've lost all of that. We had a shipping line here. Where is it? It's lost. And today your government tells us, oh no, the way to go now is to concession everything out to other actors. Why can't we have enough confidence in ourselves and in our people to know that we can run a port and run it efficiently and make money? Al Bayrak, which is running it, is a private company from Turkey. Why can't we foster that in the Gambia? Why can't we have the public sector do it and do it maybe in a public-private partnership? Bring in Gambians who can run that port. Because Al Bayrak did nothing more than change the management structure of that port. They didn't bring in a dime. We could have brought in young Gambians to run the port and just change the management structure. At best, that was a management contract, nothing else. They are making a lot of money today, and the partnership is 80-20. We own 20% of our port that we built. 80% goes to Al Bayrak. What is the economic justification? Nothing, absolutely. And the revenue structure is even worse. It's 96.4%. So this is what your government is doing to this country. And then what do? You concession the Sanyang port to them. You want to build a port in Sanyang. You concession that to them, and they haven't brought in anything to Banjul, let alone Sanyang. You tell us the port is going to cost $450 million, which is absolutely untrue. That sort of port in Sanyang you cannot build for $450 million. You cannot. It requires at least $1 billion. They don't have the money to do that. They're going to try to raise the money to do it. Why can't the Gambia raise that kind of money on the international markets and build a port for itself? But they say, no, the problem is now everybody's going private, so they have networks. Why can't we develop networks? Why can't we do the same thing? Don't you trust the Gambians to do that for us? Bring in competent young people who have the desire and the patriotism to change this country, and it will happen. We saw it happen here. I often give the example of Mohamed Manjan's Social Security. Social Security was in difficulties, was in the doldrums. Mohamed was brought around, and he changed the fortunes of Social Security. We saw the same thing with Yaya Barrow at the Gambia Petroleum. He came around, he helped to change the fortunes of the company. But anytime those people change the fortunes of those companies and start making profits, they are fired because there's money to be made and corruption steps in again. And all of these structures were built by other governments to help us raise revenue and finance our development and our budget. And you are just selling off everything that you didn't even contribute in building. The same goes for the Gambia telecommunication sector, Gamtel. Gamtel was paying the salaries of the civil service. The successive governments after Jawara left have made sure that Gamtel has become a liability for this country instead of an asset. When its competitors in the private sector are making tons of money by hiring the infrastructure that belongs to Gamtel. Gamtel, which owns infrastructure, is losing money. When its competitors who are hiring that infrastructure are making money, what does that tell you? That the management structure is corrupt. That Gamtel has been made to fail. They have been set up for failure. Stay out of their way. Get your hands out of their coffers. Bring in a sound, competent management. Review the personnel levels of the company. If you need to right size by paying people what is required for them to go and start another life somewhere. Today, those people who are being laid off are being paid a pittance. People have worked in Gamtel for over 20 years, and they are being laid off with packages of $200,000, $250,000 in the Gambia. To do what? You can't even buy a plot of land with that, let alone develop it. So what are you doing to those people? They tell you, oh, because they failed. They failed because you got the wrong management for them. That is why they failed. You stifled them with the wrong management, and they could not go anywhere. And that is what is happening all across. Where do we see it again? It's in the Ministry of Agriculture. You contract loans, you give it to private sector individuals, and then after some time you take it back. That's 50 million from Badea. You give to Jar Oil. After a year or so, you took it back and said he paid it back under very opaque circumstances, when you could have used that money to empower young farmers in this country. They don't have to be working as farmhands. They could have been people who are working to become independent, self-reliant, and income-generating, job-creating Gambian farmers. But no, you wouldn't empower those people, you empower your friends. The Gambians have lost those $50 million. They could have been used to develop the Gambian agricultural sector. And the Gambian agriculturalists and farmers, they have lost out because your government lacks vision, lacks patriotism. Today, you buy the groundnuts from the farmers at $38,000 for 3 consecutive years. And your ministers tell us that you buy it at a loss because groundnut is selling at $20,000 on the international market. That's not true at all. The minimum price for groundnuts on the international market today is $800 per ton. That is over $59,000 if you were to sell it at the Gambian, at the current rate of the dollar today, or $74 to the dollar. And the top bracket is $1,200, which will fetch $88,000 per ton. So you are shortchanging the Gambian farmer. Why is that? Because you don't care about them. All you care about is your own government and you people in your government and your cronies. And this is why the Gambians are going to vote you out in 2028. This is the corruption that is festering in this country. But there is more to it than that. Every sector of this economy that you deal with, you find the same thing. I just have to check out some of these things because there is so much to say, including the way you fire the Auditor General in a very illegal manner. The Auditor General, that position is a secure tenure, but you flouted all the rules and you fired him because he brought out the corruption in your government. And I hope that the courts will do the right thing and bring him back because he has security of tenure. He should not just be thrown out at a whim. Another area we see a lot of the corruption festering is in the road construction sector. You claim to be constructing roads. Your program priorities are what? Infrastructure. There is more to the Gambia than infrastructure. Infrastructure is important, but infrastructure is an enabler. It's an enabler, essentially for trade facilitation. What do you trade in this country? Nothing. You build roads for what? It's supposed to be for movement of people and for the movement of goods and services across the country. If you have goods to transport and to sell, it's wonderful. But all the goods that we move are goods that are being imported. The roads would have been very much more effective if we have produced goods in this country and we sell them using those roads, because that's what the Senegambia Bridge was built for. The West African Corridor, Trans-West Africa from Dakar to Nigeria. But what do we have to sell? Nothing. We don't sell anything in this country apart from peanuts. And even that, you manage to rip off the farmers who can make a living from selling. And the ton of groundnuts you sell to those farmers is less than what your ministers earn in a day in per diem when they travel. The per diem of your ministers when they travel out of this country, per day they earn more than what a farmer earns for 1 ton of groundnuts. How do you call that equity? How do you call that patriotism? How do you call that love for your country? If the day abroad for your minister is worth more than a ton of groundnuts for the poor farmer. No wonder your ministers are traveling all the time, because they're making tons of money. These are the areas where you need to focus on. These are the worst what we went through in 2025, and which are probably going to continue in 2026 unless we do something about it. And that something would be to take Barrow out of the way and bring in a UDP-led government. You see, another area where we saw corruption festering in this country was the sale of the Jammeh assets. Jammeh's assets were confiscated to the benefit of the state. And your government decided to sell them off. In fact, that's not even selling them off. That's them giving them away. We saw people buy here vehicles, four-wheel drive vehicles at $10,000, $15,000. Are you kidding me? Somebody even bought a four-wheel drive vehicle for $5,000. That is not even the cost of changing a tire in this country. You sold a four-wheel drive vehicle for less than the price of a tire of that car. That's the corruption we saw in your government. That is what we see happening in this country all the time. And that is what we're trying to remove in this country. And that is what we're going to change in 2025, because otherwise the Gambia is doomed. The Gambia will be doomed because it has nothing to show, nothing to give to our young people who are all going by the back way because there is no more hope for them in this country. When you lose hope, you do desperate things. Our young folks are taking the risk of dying in the desert and the high seas because they have lost hope in their country and the prospect of getting anything better for themselves in this country. And one of the symptoms for that is the tourism sector. The tourism sector in this country is dying a slow, painful death. How many tourists come into this country these days? Your government spins figures, which you know is not true. You just need to go to the Senegambia area and you see that the tourism sector is dying. Most of those restaurants and hotels are virtually empty. The tourists have stopped coming to the Gambia because, one, the tourism product is no longer attractive. All we offer them is the sea, the sun, and the sun. There's more to life than that. What can you do? Why can't you develop this tourism product to make it more attractive for the tourists coming to the Gambia? Your government said we're going to ecologists to make it more attractive. What did we see? All the money for the ecologists were just squandered and diverted. And your minister, then Minister of Tourism, Ahmad Ba, went to Parliament, and he was huffing and puffing all over the place. And what he said was that, yeah, we acknowledge that this money has been lost. With no consequences. Tens of millions of dollars, which are supposed to go into developing ecotourism facilities, were just diverted, and nothing absolutely happened. Just like nothing happened when the assets were sold here. Jammeh's assets, which were confiscated, were sold to friends and cronies. That's what we see. We want to know who are those people who bought those vehicles. That's Seydou Jallow, who bought 48 vehicles. We want to know who he is. Who is he fronting for? The people who bought the houses, who are they fronting for? We want to know that. People buy houses and a few weeks down the line they sell for double the price. They make a killing. Who is behind that? And it took the Gambian youth coming out, Gala in particular, to demonstrate for you to start an investigation in what was going wrong, which you knew was going wrong, and you said you could not do anything about it because you don't want to reveal the names of the people who bought those assets. Why can't you reveal them? If they bought our assets and they bought them properly and under legitimate condition, why would it be a difficulty to say who they are? It took the Gambian youth, Gala in particular, coming out and demonstrating for you to start a parliamentary investigation, which is still going on. God knows when it's going to come to an end. But we have hope in that because we see the young lawyers who are there, who are interrogating, who seem to be doing a very good job, and the parliamentarians who are there also seem to be wanting to achieve results. We are hoping that when they come out with their report, it will be a good report and it will be implemented, because that is the default mode we should have. When reports come out, they are implemented. But in your government, nothing gets implemented. We have seen the TRRC report here. Nothing has happened out of it. No implementation, nothing. The victims are dying off. When the people who haunted them, the perpetrators, are earning civil service salaries up to now in the Gambia. Only Sana Manjang was brought back to be prosecuted. What about the ones who testified in front of the TRRC, who are still here, who are earning salaries for most of them? Why couldn't they be prosecuted? And Sana Manjang was just a front who was brought in. You guys knew where he was all along. You didn't go for him. You went for him because you wanted somebody to use as a bargaining chip to say the Gambia is unstable, there might be a coup d'etat, keep economic here, etc., etc. No, we do not need economic. We need to have security reforms and reform our security sector and make sure that the Gambia is on the right footing. We cannot continue to be occupied by foreign forces. They came and helped us to recover our sovereignty, which is extremely laudable, and we say thank you to them. But they must not overstay their welcome in this country. And they have currently overstayed their welcome, and you want to keep them more because you don't trust the Gambian soldiers. You don't trust the Gambian security services. So you want to keep economic here. So Sana Manjang is a very good excuse. He's not an angel. He's no choir boy. And I wouldn't spill any tears for him going to jail. But he's not the only one who should be in jail today. Why are the others not there? That is on your government. These are so many of the things we see in this country. And your government is doing nothing to change this situation. But the Gambian people will do something about that. Because come December 2026, they're going to remove your government. We're going to have to change this country and get it on the proper footing. I'm running short of time because I have so many more. I just listed a few of them to see which main ones should I concentrate on. But you just can't go through all of them in one program. So we will come back next week with my friends Larry and Lamino to continue this retrospective of 2025, because it's a litany of woes for the Gambia. And this government has absolutely no desire to change this situation. So the Gambian people, it's up to you. You pay this government very handsomely. You take care of them in a very decent way so that they can take care of the Gambians. But it's not happening. It's not happening. You pay them very comfortable salaries and very good perks, including vehicles, fuel, what have you, accommodation. And for the president, every little thing, he doesn't buy anything. Everything is given to him free of charge. And on top of that, you pay him $500,000 a month for salary, and you give him $4.5 million for food. That's $5 million a month going to him. That is on top of everything else he has. A fleet of luxury vehicles, fuel all the time, and $52 million you give him again for next year to go waste in the campaign in the country. The Meet the People tour is Campaign with the People tour. Every year, this gentleman takes money and goes around the country to campaign for his party. And all we hear is UDP this, Usainu Dabo that. That's all we hear. You are supposed to go and meet the people, decide with them what their priorities are, listen to them, take notes, come back home to the Banjul area, and implement those decisions taken with the people when you go to meet them. Or you don't even listen to those people to tell you what they want. All you do is go there and castigate your opponents and beat your chest and flaunt your road development, which is nothing more than corruption disguised as capital development. Because the amount of money being diverted on the road construction. Your Minister of Construction told us that he put $150 million in Batil Harding Highway, which should have been $22 million. Why did $128 million extra go? And he went to procure, or rather borrow, another $54 million to complete that project, he said. And they are breaking parts and restarting all over again. The design is terrible. The road construction, the sub-base of that road is horrible. The drainage facilities around the road are bad. Don't talk of the lighting. In a few years, I keep saying, you'll see that road starting to begin to sag. You would have done all of that and left the liabilities to the next government, which will be a UDP-led government, inshallah. We see it on the OIC secondary roads, which is supposed to have spent $50 million to construct a 50-kilometer network. That's $1 million per kilometer of secondary roads on which you didn't spend $200,000 per kilometer. But again, the same thing. It's the corruption that's festering. You remember your president, President Barrow, you went on air yourself gloating that you're going to build a new network of roads here, and that network, you have roads that are subterranean, because as you say it, Dolbe Santo Dolbe Duma, that's how you said it, when actually meant the roads and the flyovers. He said those roads are 6 to 8 lanes with flyovers and everything, and that road construction cost $1 million per kilometer. And I applauded. I said, at least this time he's telling us what is the truth, because that's what it's cost. You said that it's there out there on video and audio and everything. But your minister went around and said he's built us a road that cost $6.8 million per kilometer. And now with the additional $54 million, it's going to cost us $9.17 million per kilometer, a world record, when you yourself said it's $1 million per kilometer. It's out there on the internet. So we went from 1 million, as you rightly said, to 9 million. So the road construction, no wonder your government is very keen on road construction, because it's enriching some people and adding to our debt stock, making this country insolvent. The World Bank and IMF recently said that the Gambia is debt distressed. I say we knew that for a long time ago. It's you guys and the government who are telling us the Gambia is getting into debt distress. We are not getting into this. We are debt distressed already. And what does debt distress do? It makes it virtually impossible to borrow. And if you borrow, the premium, the risk premium, risk of default, is so high that the loans become extremely expensive for the Gambia, if you can find one. If you can find loans, they become extremely expensive because the risk premium is extremely high. The more insolvent a country becomes, or the more likely that it will default on its loans, the more the risk premium, because you are a risk, so you might not pay back the loan. So the interest you are charged gets so much higher. And the time over which you pay, it becomes shorter, because nobody trusts you will be there to be able to pay back those loans. So to hedge the risk, they raise the interest on the loans, and they shorten the payment periods, which just goes to compound your difficulties. And this is what you are doing to this country. This is what you're going to leave for the next government. This is why we have to change this government, because I have absolutely no imagination. And all you can do about that is to borrow, borrow, borrow. When you cannot borrow anymore, you tax us all into poverty. Today, GRA is beating its chest, saying it's been raising $23 billion, etc. You can be much more efficient than that. You can raise much more than that. Why are we getting only 23 billion? GRA should have been able to raise more than that, and raise it in a way that doesn't that doesn't bankrupt every Gambian. Today, the level of taxation in this country is making every Gambian poorer, so much more poor. If you do the right things, implement the right policies, you increase the employment in this country, you increase the possibility of Gambian youth borrowing money at low interest rates or virtually bonified, subsidized interest rates, and they build whatever they need to build in this country in terms of businesses, in terms of small industries, etc., cottage industries. You have much more people paying taxes. You have more products that you can export. You gain more foreign exchange. The dollar gets stronger. The economy gets better. Employment gets better. And you have more people to tax, and to tax lower, because you widen the tax base. If you widen the tax base, you can lower the taxes. So you don't have to tax us all into poverty. But no imagination. As one of your ministers said, you're clueless. All you can do is tax us all into poverty and live big of that. Because your government and you are living it big, while the Gambians are in abject poverty. People can't send their kids to school. They can put 2 or 3 square meals on the table per day for their families. They can't do anything. When they fall sick, they pray to God instead of going to hospital. Because the hospitals do not have what is required. The medical personnel in the hospitals are very patriotic and want to do the job, but they don't have the wherewithal. You don't give them additional training they need to be able to do what they need to do. We have University of the Gambia now with a medical school. Why can't you train more doctors? Why can't you specialize more doctors? Why can't you get more facilities for the hospitals? Why can't we get more medication in the hospital? Why can't you develop the pharmaceutical sector where we can start producing some of the drugs locally? You don't have any of those in your plans. Because you don't care about this country. All you care about, you and your government, is how do you get yourselves very comfortable? How do you become more and more rich? No wonder you got yourself $12.25 million in cars for yourselves. When the Gambians don't even have bicycles. Why does a minister need a car that is $2.25 million? You contracted $1.80 billion under the OIC, under the pretext of the OIC summit, and you bought those cars at $12.25 million by your own admission for a 2-day conference. When that was over, what did you do? You distributed between your ministers and some of your cronies in the government. And we have to pay for that. We have to pay for the fuel for those cars. Those cars will consume every month $60,000 to $80,000 in fuel. They are all V8 cars. Why do your ministers need that? Anybody who needs a V8, go buy one for yourself. Contract a loan and buy one. What we need is money to take cars to take you to the office and back. We don't need all of those white elephant projects. But we cannot finish enumerating the woes that you have put the Gambian people through. We will come back to that next week, and we will deal with it more. And we hope that for the next budgets, you wouldn't bring them in with a certificate of urgency where nobody discusses the budget and you pass the budget the way you like, write it the way you like, and have it adopted the way you like. That will end. And that will end this year, because next year's budget, you will develop it, but UDP will implement it in 27, and we will change that. Thank you all very much. We will come back to these topics next week, and we will be able to discuss them in the local languages as well. Gambia, we have to wake up. We have to take responsibility for our lives. This government is destroying our country, and it has to stop. And we can stop it on the 5th of December, 2026. Let's do that and look after ourselves and our children, so our debt doesn't go beyond $150 billion. We will come back to that next week. Thank you all very much, and hope to see you next week, inshallah. I wish you all a very happy and prosperous new year, even though the prospects in the Gambia are very bleak, but stay confident, stay hopeful, avoid the back way. Let's work towards changing this government and make 2026 better, and especially 2027, make it better for all the Gambians. Thank you very much, and stay confident, stay hopeful, stay blessed. God bless you all.